Evans, who has set standards of excellence for every brand he's touched throughout his career, is responsible for the editorial vision, direction, and content for the iconic Southern Living multimedia brand. Reaching more than 16 million people each month, Southern Living connects consumers to the region's rich culture through a variety of print, digital, mobile, tablet, and event platforms. Sid is responsible for ensuring that the media powerhouse's digital franchises, over 12 annual special issues, dozens of books, special events, and hundreds of licensed products reflect the brand's core mission and values. Sid is a native of Memphis, Tennessee, as am I, and attended Connecticut College, and he now is based in Southern Living's Birmingham office with his wife and 2 children. I'd like to join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Sid Evans.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. And Samir, thank you for having me. It's such an honor and a privilege to be here. My check is in the mail for next year for that diamond sponsorship. Whenever I'm in Oxford, Mississippi, I always think of the great Barry Hannah, who was a writer. He taught at this university. He was kind of an idol of mine, and he was someone who really inspired me to want to be a writer. I used to actually type Barry's stories in an attempt to try and understand what it felt like to write those words, to put those words down on a page. And I thought that might make me a better writer, and what it really did was just make me a better typist. So I kind of failed at the writing game, but I did what a lot of failed writers do, which was to become an editor. So anyway, I found a quote from Barry that I thought was relevant to what we're talking about tonight. And Barry was talking about writing, but this is what he said. He said, "I'll tell you why I like writing." I can almost hear him saying it. "It's just like jumping into a pool. I get myself into a kind of trance. I engage the world, but it's also wonderful to just escape. I try to find the purities out of the confusion. It's pretty old-fashioned, but it's fun." And I just love that notion of writing being like jumping into a pool. And I think that print magazines are the same way. And that's what we're here talking about tonight. And that's really what I want to focus on tonight, is print magazines. If it's really good, you get submerged in it. You lose yourself, and you get lost in the words and the pictures and the ideas. And yes, it's old-fashioned, but it's fun. It's still fun. As the editor-in-chief of Southern Living, I think I have the most fun job on the planet. I oversee a print magazine that reaches 2.8 million subscribers. That makes Southern Living the 7th largest monthly magazine in the country. When you look at the total audience, including digital, that expands to 20 million, which is bigger than pretty much every top show on television. Other than scale, one key differentiator for Southern is that we are focused on the South, as most of you know, which means that our reach is practically door to door. This is a map that we take out on a lot of sales calls, and it shows that we have this unique power that comes with incredible scale and also incredible density. We have a lot of other successful print ventures in addition to the magazine. We publish 14 of these bookazines every year. This is a really significant business for us. These are single topic issues with no advertising. They sell for $13, $12.99. Consumers are buying more of these, not less. And while overall sales at the newsstand have declined since 2010, our bookazine sales have grown. And by the way, I showed up in 2011, and you can see how the numbers started to go up right after that. We publish 8 to 10 books a year, mostly cookbooks, but last fall we published a coffee table book to celebrate our 50th anniversary. And we published a collection of essays by Rick Bragg called My Southern Journey. The coffee table book sold 20,000 copies at $40 a piece. It's sold out. It's going back for a second printing. And the Rick Bragg book made the New York Times bestseller list and is in its fifth printing. So clearly there is some interest in print there. We have a lot of brand extensions, and I could do a whole presentation just talking about that, but I'll just give you a sense of kind of the universe of Southern Living. So all of these provide incremental revenue, and most importantly, all of these are fueled by print. We have a licensing deal with Dillard's that covers 700 SKUs. 3 years ago, we had 20 SKUs. That's products. And 300 Southern Living lifestyle shops within their stores. We have a house plans business, a collection of 17 hotels. That's a licensing arrangement. We have a collection of Southern Living inspired communities, a custom builder network, an interior designer network, a plant collection, an airport store, for any of you who are passing through Atlanta today, and an online boutique that just launched on Wayfair.com. In the past, we've had other businesses, including a cooking school and a kind of Avon lady business called Southern Living at Home, which was immensely profitable, where Southern women would get together and sell products to each other in their homes. So when you look at all these brand extensions, I think it's fair to say that Southern Living has really been one of the most innovative and forward-thinking brands ever launched. I mean, they were doing a lot of this stuff back in the 70s and the 80s before I ever got there, and it's a tradition now that we are innovative when it comes to brand extensions. One early move that they made, thanks to Don Logan, who was the CEO of Southern Progress and later the CEO of Time Inc., was to repackage all of the year's recipes into SL Annual Recipes, a hardcover collection that we sell at the end of every year. The franchise is still quite profitable. I'm sure that some of you have seen stacks of these, perhaps in your grandmother's house. At one point, it was selling more than 1 million copies every year, which is basically like 50 Shades of Grey in cookbook form. So we are taking that legacy of innovation into the digital space and into video and into events. And I'm going to touch on those later. But what I really wanted to talk about tonight is the staying power of print. So staying power is defined as a quality or ability that allows someone or something to continue to be effective, successful, popular, etc., for a long period of time. As a media business that's thriving more than ever, Southern Living may be 50, but we feel like we're 30. We're leveraging print to build new businesses, to reach new audiences, and to tell great stories. And I can promise you that we are going to be around for a long, long time. So a few years ago, there was a lot of talk about this headline in The Onion: "Print Dead at 1803. Sources close to print, the method of applying ink to paper in order to convey information to a mass audience, have confirmed that the declining medium passed away early Thursday morning." The influential means of communication was 1803. And, I still laugh when I read that, and I love The Onion. I mean, they are hilarious, and they know what they're doing. But like so many declarations of the death of print, that one is receding into the past. And it's worth noting that The Onion was a newspaper and not a magazine. Magazines are different, especially when you start thinking of them as magazine media. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that we don't have our struggles. We do. We have declining circulation, we have declining advertising revenue, all of these things, newsstand, they're all in secular decline, but it is a manageable decline. Some brands just aren't going to make it, but it has always been that way. And in the same way that an old quarterback can still win a Super Bowl, I think print magazines are still incredibly powerful. They're still desirable. They still drive engagement. They still spur people to action. They still build brands, and they give legacy media companies certain advantages, which is perhaps why you see so many digital brands getting into print. Just look at, All Recipes, WebMD, Net-a-Porter, or, down here it's Net-a-Porter. I could give you a bunch of statistics, like the fact that there are more print brands today. 7,289 is the number I have, Samir. I'm sure you have an updated one. Than there were 10 years ago. Or that consumers are more receptive to advertising in print than in any other vehicle. Or that the highest print readership rates are among those ages 18 to 29, which is astonishing. But I'm more interested in why print magazines are so effective. So that's what I want to talk about for the next few minutes. And I'm going to give you a list of 7 things that kind of answer that question of why magazines are still so powerful. So first of all, magazines are immersive. I want to go back to Barry Hannah for a minute and talk about that pool. Reading a magazine is an immersive experience. You're not skimming across the surface. You are diving in. The average reader of Southern Living spends about 40 minutes looking at an issue, according to MRI. The average unique visitor on most websites spends about 4 minutes. So think about that. I mean, I can spend 4 minutes just looking at a magazine cover. And this isn't just an old guy talking. A story last year in the Washington Post was headlined, and this was the headline: "Why Digital Natives Prefer Reading in Print." Yes, you read that right. It was all about millennials saying that it was easier to follow stories and that they strongly prefer print for pleasure and learning. Well, pleasure and learning is a lot of what we do in magazines. We talk to our readers a lot through focus groups and through research and just email. We're constantly in communication with our readers. And they often say that Southern Living is a thing that they turn to when the dishes are done and when the kids are to bed, and it's their me time. This is their special time. And that is exactly what I want. I mean, it sounds almost kind of creepy, but I want their me time. Our sister brand, InStyle, had the same thing when they launched their gorgeous redesign in March. If you haven't seen it, I just think they did a beautiful job. And Rena Stone, who is their talented creative director, said, "Our readers told us over and over again that they read to retreat." And that is a great state of mind to reach people in. And it's not a state of mind that people associate with digital. In other words, let's make it immersive. Let's make it an escape. So number 2, magazines are personal. This is our new June cover, which you guys are getting a little sneak peek at. People don't write letters to TV shows, and they don't write letters to BuzzFeed, but they do write letters to magazine readers. At Southern Living, we get hundreds of letters and emails every month. And almost all of them are personal, almost as if we're family members. And they seem to see me as a relative. So here's one I got a few months ago. "Darling, you're not going to believe this, but I was getting all my new orange and white wardrobe ready for the Vols game on Sunday night, and my Southern Living was there on the couch just calling my name. Well, I started reading your article, and hun, I nearly died. We love, love, love Ye Old Steakhouse. Look for me at the games. I'll be in orange and white singing Rocky Top. Not very well, but with much enthusiasm. P.S. Hope you've not gotten too big for your britches and still read your own mail." So, they're not all like that, but we get a lot of letters that are very personal. And that's exactly what I want. So here's another one. In the summers, and they all say, "Dear Sid," except when they're mad. "In the summers, I would visit my vivacious grandmother in her small town world of Three Rivers, Texas. Her drawl was thick. Her youth dew perfume was even thicker. and her red lipstick was always perfect. Her home was where I read my first copy of Southern Living from a neat little stack on her coffee table. It has been my Bible ever since. So, this is from a Southern woman who used the word Bible. Now, I mean, who says that about a website? I think magazines get so personal because they are a collection of ideas and images that are crafted just for you. Everything is very intentional. Everything is designed for emotional impact. It's designed for connection with you. And theoretically, all the crap has been edited out, if it's been well edited, so you get a product that feels like a friend. Of course, they can also get personal when they're ticked off. Dear Mr. Evans, a cake that looked like a kid slapped on the buttercream and then decorated it with Play-Doh ribbon? Really? Prosciutto wrapped duck? Outside of Mountain Brook, where does one find prosciutto or duck in the state of Alabama? Really? A perfume ad that causes anaphylaxis before the pages are turned? Really? Have you heard of allergies? Sincerely, wheezing and sneezing in the South. So, we ripped out the perfume ads and sent her a fresh copy. So number 3, magazines are surprising. So, a music journalist that I know once said that his favorite moment of any concert was right before it starts, when the band is just picking up their instruments and anything can happen. There was always the chance that it could be the greatest concert he'd ever seen, even though he had seen thousands of them. And this was a guy who worked at Rolling Stone. I feel the same way when I get a copy of a favorite magazine with a great cover. And, rarely do I feel that way about my own magazine because I can see all of its flaws and I lay awake at night thinking about them. But with a new magazine, especially in the hands of a great editor, anything can happen. And I want you to consider for a minute, you guys all know this cover. The great Graydon Carter ran this last year. Nobody had any idea that this was coming. And the image and the cover line, and I brought a copy right here, because we are talking about print after all. It was so powerful and so unexpected and so dramatic, and it totally captivated the world. You just don't see this kind of impact coming from digital media. So you have an advantage with print, and he took advantage of it. But you know what I felt when I saw this cover? Envy. And I say that not because I would ever run a cover like that on Southern Living, because I wouldn't, but because I will probably never run a cover that has that kind of seismic impact. And few editors ever will. This issue sold 432,000 copies, which made it the best-selling cover in 5 years. It drove 9 million uniques in a day. But what's really interesting is that people didn't just want to consume this story on their phones. They wanted a copy of the magazine. So Graydon said, I jumped ahead. He said, what we saw with this cover is that the internet is now another newsstand for us. The social, video, and digital content was compelling in a way that piqued people's interest in owning a physical copy of the magazine. It created a digital moment, as it were, that made people want to hold the story in their hands. And that is really interesting and compelling, and not something that we've been talking about a whole lot. So, to that point, magazines are social. We often talk about print and digital as separate things, but they actually fuel each other, especially in social media. So, for 50 years, Southern Living readers have displayed the issue on their coffee table as a reflection of who they are. It's a personal statement. Now, they are taking a picture of that coffee table and they're putting it on Instagram. for the first time ever, we're seeing how and where they like to read their magazine, which is an incredibly intimate connection to have. Although I don't really want to know everywhere that they read their magazine. These are a bunch of images that we get sent. They post these on Instagram. We regram them, and it's unbelievable. We regram them, and then they get likes and likes and likes and likes. So we're also seeing our print recipes driving incredible engagement in video. Southern Living is a top performer in video at Time Inc. We are being incredibly aggressive about this. And these are 5 videos that have all seen more than 1 million views on Facebook, and every single one of them originated in print. It's also interesting that our top performing video this year about how to make a hummingbird cake is from a recipe that first appeared in Southern Living in 1978. So I'm going to give you a little taste of this video. That's a lot of sugar. All right, I'm not going to make you guys watch the whole thing because we don't have drinks. But that video has been viewed more than 30 million times on Facebook. 30 million times. And why is that? I think it's because our readers developed a personal, emotional connection to this recipe that started in print. I think it reminds them of their Southern roots, and it reminds them why they love Southern Living. So number 5, magazines are actionable. So one thing that sets Southern Living apart as a magazine is that the degree to which this audience takes action. I often say that they don't just read Southern Living, they live it. They cook the recipes, and often they want to show us that they did it. So this is from a story that we ran in our anniversary issue. It was called Our Most Storied Cakes. And these are pictures from a woman named Laura who made every single cake in the issue and then sent us pictures. These are not easy cakes to make. This is a group of ladies who from Georgia who set up a Southern Living supper club that they started 20 years ago. They get together every single month and cook recipes out of the issue. When it comes to road trips, we often hear that they will tear the pages out of the print magazine, and they will follow this road trip and go and hit every single stop on the trip. Excuse me. And this is a story that we ran a few years ago. So, they are booking hotels. We ran this story about a place called the Fulton Lane Inn. And in the story, it said that we recommended, it's a little short thing you can see. We recommended that people book room 217 because it had really great light and a great view. And I ran into the owners of this hotel last year, and they said that they were going to change every single room in the hotel to 217 because they were getting so many requests for that room. And look, they may book the hotel room online, but the inspiration is coming from print. The print magazine is still driving people to take that action. So magazines are credible. Most people don't know this about me, but I actually make a pretty damn good batch of biscuits. I've been working at it, and I can do this because I use the Southern Living recipe, so you can do it too. All you have to do is you freeze your butter, and then you grate the frozen butter into the flour, and it mixes it in there perfectly, and trust me, it works every time. But Google biscuit recipe, and you will get more than 10 million results. And I can promise you that 9 million of those biscuit recipes are not going to work. But a recipe that appears in Southern Living magazine is going to work every time, and our readers know that. We've done focus groups on this. We talk to them all the time, and they will say that they will make a Southern Living recipe for company before they've even tested it out first. And for a Southern hostess to say that she would make a recipe for company without trying it because she trusts the brand so much is absolute gold. That legacy of trust was built on 50 years of print. It's the core of our brand promise, and it really fuels everything that we do. And finally, magazines are physical. I don't think we talk enough about the physicality of our products. And I think you can tell a lot about a magazine just by the feel of it. When I worked at Garden & Gun, my alma mater, that was often the first thing that people said about it. They said, I love the paper. You know, even for people who didn't get the title, and there were certainly a lot, especially in those early days, it made them take a second look, and it gave them some trust in that brand. You see a lot of magazines investing in paper these days, and I think it's smart. I think it's a differentiator. It's also your first impression. And I think that's why so many brands have nicer paper on their newsstand editions than they do on their subscriber copies. You know, one of Joe Rip is my boss, the CEO of Time Inc. One of his first moves at Time Inc. was to improve the paper at People, our flagship brand. Condé Nast Traveler has gotten a lot bigger. The new Met Home is on beautiful paper. We invested in the paper at Southern Living 3 years ago, and this was something that I fought for hard. It was expensive. You know, when you have 2.8 million subscribers, it costs a lot of money to improve that paper. But we wanted to go a step further with our anniversary issue. I felt strongly that we needed a print product that would basically be our readers' coffee table book for 2016. I wanted an issue that we would still be proud of 20 years from now, and I wanted our readers to have something that they could save and that they could share. So after much discussion, we made a few key investments. We improved the cover stock. We invested in a double issue, so twice as many pages, and we did 4 consecutive covers. So, you know, these are tough investments to justify in today's environment. You know, there's so much pressure to invest in digital, and invest we must, and invest we will. But we should not forget about the importance and the value of that print product. And without question, the investment that we made in this issue paid off with consumers and advertisers. Our newsstand was up 30% year over year, which is, you know, a lot of people will tell you that anniversary issues don't sell. Well, this one did. In terms of ad revenue, it was the biggest February issue in history of the brand. And in terms of consumer response, I got letters like this one from a woman named Marcia in Austin, Texas. Sid, greatest publications of all time. 1, the Bible. 2, To Kill a Mockingbird. 3, 50th anniversary edition of Southern Living. I mean, we just kind of danced a little jig around the office when I got that one. They don't all sound like that. But, you know, I can't prove that the paper is what got her so excited. And honestly, it is almost impossible to prove that paper has an impact on either advertising or consumer response. And believe me, I've tried. You know, it's just hard to make that case. But I brought a couple hundred copies of the anniversary issue. You guys have all seen them. They're in your chair. And my hope is that it's going to be very hard for you to throw it away because of that investment that we made. So I'm going to wrap this up. I started out with a quote from Barry Hannah, and I want to end it with another quote from a great Southern writer. About a month ago, I got a call from Rick Bragg, who writes the back page of Southern Living every month. And Rick is one of our most popular columnists. He gets more mail than I do. And Rick wanted to write a tribute to his good friend, the novelist Pat Conroy, who had just died, and who's a great loss to the South. So I thought that this was a fine idea, but I was a little dubious about running it in the magazine because Rick had just run a tribute to Harper Lee. And I thought doing that back-to-back might not be the way to go. So I suggested that Rick do a piece about Pat for the website, which gets a lot of traffic. I mean, we're talking about 7 or 8 million uniques, and it would also give us a chance to respond to this really quickly. And I thought a lot of people would appreciate it, and it would get shared a lot. And so Rick said he would think about it. Well, if you don't know Rick, he can get a little cranky sometimes, and he especially gets cranky on deadline. And the next day, my copy chief came into my office with a message from Rick, and she was looking a little sheepish, and she was kind of reluctant to share it. But I said, go ahead, just tell me what he said. And she said, well, he said he wants to write that piece for his column, and if you want to run it on the website, you can kiss his ass. So you'll find that column in your May issue on the back page in print. Thank you very much.
Sid is willing to take some questions and also is willing to sign the collectible edition. I brought with me, just in case, 2 Sharpies that he can use. But questions? We have time for a few questions.
Oh, also, can I just say one more thing? I also, just if anybody is interested, I brought a copy of the first issue of Southern Living, which was February 1966. You can see our trim size was quite a bit bigger back then. But anyway, if anybody wants to take a look at that, I'd be happy to share it.
Sid, you just lost your first issue. There's somebody here in the room that collects first editions. So if you want to see a copy, I will take a picture of it and put it on my website. You can look at it. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think the answer is yes, but I think with everything that we do with Facebook, it's a test, and we're trying it out, and we're making sure that it works for us and it works for our audience. Facebook Live is a huge initiative for them. They just rolled this out, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. And we have jumped into that with both feet. We're doing Facebook Live really about every other day. We're doing it 2 or 3 times a week. And it's, it's new territory. And we get a ton. I mean, Facebook is our main driver of referrals to our site. So it's very important to us. As a company, we're in a lot of conversations with Facebook, and I think there's lots of possibilities. But we are aggressively exploring that, and I think the same thing will be true of instant articles. But we'll see if it works. If we saw a big drop in the video traffic we were getting, the video views we were getting on our site, which we get paid for, then we might dial that back. But it's trial and error right now. Yeah. it is a very tricky balance. And, you know, I don't think that we are losing a lot of readers. You know, we do research regularly, and we are consistently at the absolute top of Time Inc. In terms of all of the metrics that we track with engagement with the magazine and with their satisfaction and with their time spent and with, you know, whether they're willing to recommend it to a friend. But the one exception is we made a conscious decision to basically launch a fifth pillar of the magazine. We have been food, home, garden, and travel for 50 years, and we added a pillar of style because we saw a lot of opportunity there, and we saw, especially with younger audiences. And when we do focus groups, when we talk to our subscribers, when we talk to audiences, that is definitely something that the younger audience wants, and the older one does not. And so we do get some pushback on that, but for the most part, they are okay with it, and they haven't revolted. And if they did, then then we would rethink it. Yeah.
Let's think about geography. So Southern Living, you said Maryland to Texas, like Maryland to Washington to Texas, and then Coastal Rhode Island to Texas. Clearly, you have some incredibly specific strategies. You talk about people settling in after 15, 17, election. Is that a Southern phenomenon? Or would the strategy work for Northern living or Western living?
I don't know what northern living is. You know, it's a great question. I mean, I think that, we have an advantage to some degree in that Southerners really do think of themselves as readers, and they, that's a part of who they are. It's a part of the culture. So that may be, something of an advantage. But I actually think that it works. It can work anywhere, and it's not. I think that laid back, that relaxed state of mind that people get into when they are with a print magazine is universal, and I do think that it can work. I mean, I'm not directly overseeing Sunset anymore, but I was for a couple of years. There were a lot of similarities between the Sunset audience and the Southern Living audience. And in fact, not a lot of people maybe realize this, but Southern Living was based on Sunset. The idea came from Sunset. It's a much older magazine. It was founded in the late 1800s. They were founded on food, home, garden, and travel, those sort of core pillars. And Southern Living kind of ripped them off in 66. And it still continues to work well for Sunset. So I do think it's universal. Yeah.
I had a question kind of from the creative side. So for each of your front covers, they all have their signature look. It's very familiar. My mother had Southern Living and I was little. So my question is, how does your creative team, or how do you all go about making a cover with the signature look without kind of duplicating, the different covers? I mean, I feel like that could be pretty challenging, but I was just kind of curious how you all do that.
Well, we're doing a cover panel tomorrow at 11:15, I think. So I'll talk much more at length about that. But we've tried to, if you look at our covers now and you look at the Southern Living covers from even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they're very different. They feel very different. But I don't think anyone now is picking up Southern Living and saying, that doesn't feel like Southern Living to me. So my goal and our goal as a creative team is to move it forward, to keep it relevant, to appeal to a modern consumer, and to keep it fresh as well, and to keep it surprising and different. I mean, covers are supposed to be surprising. But at the same time, it's got to feel on brand. It's got to feel like Southern Living. So, we have a pretty involved process when it comes to covers. We look at a lot of research, and we try a lot of different things. We do testing. But there's also a gut level component to it. And usually it's, a group of us standing around a table and going, yep, that's the one.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, was there one more?
Go ahead.
I wanted to go back to the book ideas that you mentioned and also the increase in kind of the paper type. In terms of what propelled you guys to actually do that, did you find that those were internal ideas or factors or external or a combination? Which said, okay, you know what, we're gonna introduce this.
I'm not sure I fully understand the question. You're talking about book ideas?
Yeah, the curated books, and then of course the increase in the paper type.
In the paper, in the paper quality. So you mean like the Rick Bragg book that we published, and the coffee table book? So we've got a whole sort of book division that is internal called Oxmoor House, but we work very closely with them, and we run ideas by them, and they tell us that'll sell or that won't sell. But the editors are very involved in all of those discussions. Some more than others. We were especially involved in the Rick Bragg book and the anniversary book. With regard to the paper decision, paper is voodoo. I mean, it is just so hard to prove it, to make a case for why are you going to a certain size. And why are you going from 32-pound paper to 36-pound paper? Or why are you going, from 36-pound to 45-pound? And what's the texture of it going to be? And you're usually dealing with business side people when you're having those conversations. So it's very hard to do. But you do hear from your consumers who will say, it just doesn't feel like it used to, or something like that. And when you have enough of those kinds of things, it's a signal that, that maybe you need to make a change. But, the bookazines that we sell are on really nice paper. And they're on, I can tell you the covers are, I think they're 138-pound covers, 45-pound body copy. And we wanted this anniversary issue to feel like a bookazine. We wanted it to feel like something really, really special that was going to last and be around for a long time. So that's kind of how we arrived at that. I don't know if that answers your question. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Sid. Sid will be here once we adjourn if you want to chat or sign or you name it. But, people ask me all the time, why do I do those ACT experiences? And I tell them there's one simple answer. It's my students. That's the only opportunity that the students can actually be in touch with the real world, be in touch with the magazine makers. Because the students are the future magazine makers and you are the leading industry magazine makers. And there's no better place to put the two together but here. An example that both Sid and Tony mentioned and talked about is a magazine called Metropolitan Home that Hearst Magazines just relaunched. Metropolitan Home was the magazine that one of your colleagues, a student, in 1986, I invited Dorothy Karen, who was the editor-in-chief of Metropolitan Home, to come speak to the class. she spotted a student by the name of Noel Turner in the class. He was working on his master's degree. She went back to New York and she called me and said, Samir, I want to hire Noel. We have an editorial assistant position open. Went to Noel, I told him, we have this job. Said, but Doc, it's March, I didn't finish my degree. I said, who cares about your master's degree? You have an undergraduate degree, those positions don't open often. Noel quit his school, went, accepted the job. The editorial director of not only Metropolitan Home, but all of Hearst Design Group, including House Beautiful, El Decor, and Veranda, is Noel Turner, the student who started based on an invitation of one editor coming, speaking to the students. Noel moved, we have a lot of business people here. He was at the lowest of the masthead. It was the lowest of the low to the top of the masthead in 30 years. He is now the editorial director of Metropolitan Home, the magazine that you heard our speakers talk about today. So, I mean, nothing gives more pleasure for a professor than seeing his or her students excel in what they do. The whole business of magazines, print, journalism, marketing, you name it, is all about passion. You don't have the passion for it, you don't belong. I mean, we are unlike any other major, unlike any other business. I mean, if you have the passion for it, you are going to excel. And that's why I'm so proud of Noel Turner, Metropolitan Home, and all the job he's doing at Hearst. So, in the next 30 years, when I'm doing this Act 36, I'll be talking about some of you because I want you students, and all the students in the room, would you please stand up? So the current industry leaders will give you a hand.